Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. For this one we're going to continue on with the series of Scottish beer reviews, so this is review number 30 of the Scottish Beer Month, and for this one we're going to do my first ever beer review from the Kingdom of Fife in Scotland. So for this one we are going to visit, I think, one of the newer breweries in Fife, and this is the Eden Brewery St Andrews, which is St Andrews of course is the home of golf and also Scotland's oldest university, and this beer is a golden ale entitled the 19th Brew. This one was originally brewed actually at Williams Brothers, who I live about 2 miles away from their brewery, so one of my local breweries, and quite cool that it has that connection there. But St Andrews, as I mentioned to you, is the home of golf too, so you can actually go there and you'll see Tiger Woods kind of, you can go and watch him doing these tournaments and stuff like that. It's very, very cool because you can get really kind of quite close to all these sports stars and things, and a lot of movie stars actually go to St Andrews and play golf there, so quite a cool place and a very, very nice and kind of historic town in terms of Scotland. But as is usual with my reviews then, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery. It is very, very short, but just fast forward if you want to get straight to the tasting. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other reviews that I will do from the Eden Brewery in the hopefully near future, and also a link to my other reviews in the Scottish Beer Month series. So anyway, as I mentioned to you, the Eden Brewery comes from St Andrews on the east coast of Fife, and it's home to Scotland's oldest university, which was founded in 1394, the University of St Andrews. But the brewery is located on the banks of the Eden estuary, and the town actually has a long history of brewing and distilling. In the current brewery, the Hague family had operated a distillery for much of the 19th century. However, in 1860 they decided to move their operations elsewhere in Fife, and the building became a paper mill and a brewery. Now, the brewery closed in 1882, and this was followed by the closure of the last brewery in St Andrews in 1902, and the paper mill actually closed just back in 2008. But the Eden Brewery was founded in 2012, and this ended St Andrews' 110-year wait for a new brewery. And if you do go to St Andrews, you will find these beers on draft all over the place. They're a very, very popular little brewery quite locally, and they seem to be growing very, very steadily, so I wish them all the best luck in the world that they'll need for that. I'm sure their beer will speak for itself. So that's the kind of brief history, if you like, of the brewery. Just to list a few of the other beers that you have, despite only being founded back in 2012, they do actually seem to have a fairly extensive range of beers. They've got 3 different ranges that they release here. In their craft range you get the 19th Brew, which is this guy here, Clock Brew, St Andrews Blonde, Sedgy Porter, and also the 1882 Premium Pilsner. In the Oakwood series you get the Rum Barrel, Whiskey Barrel, Bourbon Barrel. These ones are all cask aged, if you hadn't guessed that. And there's the Artistoyan range, which includes the Shipwreck IPA, Isla Oak Aged, and the Oak Aged Porter as well. So they do have a really kind of they've got, for only being founded in 2012, for them to have 3 different ranges of beers is actually quite impressive, I would say. But this guy itself is a 3.9% golden ale. It's hopped with First Gold and Cascade, and it has a pale rye, lager malt, caramel, and wheat malt base on this one. So let's bring up the camera and you can have a little look at the artwork on this one. Quite nicely done, actually. I do like the artwork here. As you can see, the 19th Brew, which is a reference to the 19th hole on the on the bottle here. Quite nice artwork on this one. It's just a plain bottle cap, and there is a little bit of a description on the back. It says, at Eden Brewery St Andrews, our brewers' aims are simple: to help make more people experience and enjoy really good beer more often. This is very consistent with the intent of those who brewed on the site on the banks of the Eden estuary in the 19th century. The Sedgy brewers back then looked to make great drinkable beer for people of the area, their visitors and friends. Thank you for buying our beer, and we hope you can enjoy being part of our journey. And it says serve it at 4 to 6 degrees, which I'm pretty sure it is because it's just been taken out of the fridge. So let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting here. So this is a 3.9% golden ale from the Eden Brewery St Andrews, and my very first encounter with this brewery actually. So as you can see, a nice slightly smoky opening there, but we'll get this guy out and into the glass then. I used to go to St Andrews actually as a young kid quite a lot. My uncle used to live there when he was based in the Air Force at RAF Lookers, but the British government have actually decided that they're going to shut that down. Of course, in Scotland we get all our Air Force bases and things like that shut before they do in England, because that's the way Britain works. But that's a different story. That's politics, not beer, although I do seem to make quite a few politics references in many of my videos. But anyway, so let me just bring up the light and let you have a look at the colour of this beer. It's a very kind of clear pale golden straw, actually. Maybe a little bit of a kind of coppery tint to it as well. There's a solid kind of half finger of a frothy white head there, and that's just going to fade away to be a very thin foamy layer. But there's a good bit of carbonation visible in this one, and I'm really interested to see how this kind of fares against the other sort of golden ale beers that you get in Scotland. Obviously, some of my favourites are Yarrow, which is from Fine Ales, and there's a number of other really good ales. One of the ones I discovered in this series, the River Leven Blonde, that was beautiful, so hopefully this guy kind of matches up to that. In terms of the aroma of this one, you've got quite a sharp grassy character to this one, quite a sharp kind of grassy and kind of citric, floral, hoppy kind of element coming out quite prominently, actually. But there is a kind of underlying sort of toasted bready malt in there, kind of biscuity as well. There's an underlying sweet caramel, but I think this one has quite a bit of kind of floral hoppiness in the beer as well. But it's quite interesting. If you kind of take it in a bit more deeply, you can pick up that definite kind of biscuit malt presence there, and you've got some kind of grassy and citric character coming out that are quite sharp on the nose. So let's give this guy a taste and see how we get on here. Cheers. Yeah, it's very, very light. It's a big bready malt base on this one. Even though you can smell the kind of hop character coming out quite sharply in the aroma, it's more of a malty beer, this one, I think, on first impressions. Yeah, I would stick with that. It's more of a malty beer than a hoppy beer, if that makes sense. The ones that I was listing for you there, like the Yarrow from Fine Ales, that is a really kind of hoppy kind of blonde ale, this one. This is the kind of sort of counter of that, actually. This is a big malty one. It's quite nice, actually. It's got a good bit of kind of cereal element in the flavour, and it sort of gives it a really nice kind of more complex malt base, actually. You've got quite a sort of biscuity malt flavour in there, some bready element to it as well, and a little bit of a kind of sweet yeasty character, but there's a good bit of a sort of cereally kind of rye spice in there, actually. You can pick up the kind of rye element to this beer. I'd love to see how this one turned out on a cask ale, actually, because usually you get the malt character coming out a bit more sweetly, but it's very, very nice. I do like when you have a big kind of bready malt beer, and they've got the hop level. If they're wanting to go for one that's a more malty beer, they've got the hop character just right. It just adds a little bit of kind of grassy freshness around the edge, but it's not too sharp in its flavour, and for the style of beer that they're going for in this regard, it works very, very well. And the transition between that big kind of malty base in it and going into the hoppy character, it does it very, very well, in my opinion. Yeah, as I'm saying, you've got a nice kind of blanket of a kind of white bready character in this one. On top of that, you're getting just a little bit of kind of biscuity sweetness, but there's a good bit of a kind of pardon me, there's a good bit of a kind of rye flavour that just sits in there, and it's very, very nice. And you've got just a little bit of kind of grassy, slightly citricy freshness that goes around the edge of the tongue there, but it's very mild. It's not too sharp and kind of pushing that flavour forward, in my opinion. Yeah, it's actually got a little bit of a juicy kind of oily character that comes out later on in the beer. It's very, very nice, in my opinion. Yeah, big kind of malty base, and then you just move into this nice kind of mild grassy character in the hop, a nice lightly citric character coming out as well. It just gives you a little bit of freshness just around the edge of the tongue. Then you've got that big bready blanket that I'm talking about. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one, it's definitely light-bodied this. The carbonation is quite soft, but it does have a little bit of a prickle that helps bring out the kind of grassy and slightly citric character to the flavour of this one. It's got a slightly oily mouthfeel, but it's got a nice dry character at the same time that kind of grows in the aftertaste. The aftertaste is a kind of lingering element of that kind of bready rye character. The spice kind of disappears a little bit, but the kind of grassy element around the edge of the tongue sort of remains there as well. So I mean, overall this is a very, very nice beer. If you do like a golden ale that's more of a kind of malt based one, this is definitely one to go for actually. It's very, very nice in that regard, and the hop element of the flavour isn't too sharp, which is what you would want to avoid when you're going for a more malty kind of blonde golden ale type thing. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been quite interesting to do my first one from the Eden Brewery St Andrews, and hopefully I can taste more of their beers in the kind of relatively near future when I come back from Australia. So I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. As always, please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer below, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. And I hope you're enjoying this series of Scottish beer reviews, and I will be back soon with the next one. Cheers!